Thunder Junction is here, and the Rebellion is already hard at work trying to tame this set. I'm here with Athena the Bun to discuss her favorite brews and cards so far in the set, and a little later, I actually have a little treat for us. I get to sit down with a friend of the channel, an ally of the Rebellion, AceMTG. I ask him about content creation, I ask him about what motivates him to create content, how he got started, and his favorite cards from the set. So let's get this wagon trail moving. Let's saddle up and ride. So Athena, I gotta ask you, what's hot right now? Everyone I've spoken with so far has given like a totally different impression of what's being played on ladder. So it's hard to ask any one specific person. I guess the algorithm when it comes to who we get to play on ladder is different for each of us too. But I wanted to sit down, just take a minute and talk about some of the decks, some of the shells, some of the cards that are getting us excited. I'll let you pick the first one. What's a deck or a shell or a card that's got you brewing?
Got 3 cards for 1 shell.
Okay.
My heart and soul, my love, my baby, mono white mid-range finally feels playable. It is the greatest feeling in the world. We got 3 new cards that slot right into the main board, and then we have Rest in Peace in the sideboard to help with the teamer matchup that was absolutely atrocious.
Oh my god.
So we have we have a new engine because we have Fortune Loyal Steed, which is a 3-mana 2/4 mount. It ETBs and scries 2 and has saddle 1. And when you saddle it and you attack, it blinks itself and the creature that it saddled. So you get to scry again and get your ETB effect again. So obviously you can do this with all the normal, like, you know, Novice Inspector, Spirited Companion, Ambitious Farmhand, yada, yada, yada. We have a new ambitious farmhand, Frontier Seeker, which is a 2/1. It looks at the top 5 cards of your library, and it looks for either a plains or a mount. Also, just look for your fortune. That card's been really good with it. The fact that it's a 2/1 means it can properly like trade with things instead of just chump blocking a lot of the time. And then the third new card is Dust Animus, 2-mana 2/3 flyer with plot 2, and then if you play it while you have 5 untapped lands, when it enters the battlefield, it becomes a 4/5 lifelink flyer. So this like shell together works really well as an engine to just grind through games. You can use Fortune to blink your fortunes or your Frontier Seeker to find more plains or fortunes. You can do the normal stuff with your inspectors to get more clue tokens. You can blink your Steel Seraphs to turn them from 3/3s into 5/4s. And you can blink your Just Animus on turn 5 from a 2/3 into a 4/5 lifelinker.
I really like that move. That's really cool.
Yeah. Seraph especially works really well with it because you can give the Fortune flying so it can actually attack safely most of the time.
Okay, it synergizes well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's mono white. Always, it finds a way. I saw somebody comment that like, or no, I was listening to the testing when Dark told you that nobody else is really playing that deck, Athena.
No.
That's your favorite deck alone.
It is.
We'll see.
It's my.
We'll see. Use that to your advantage for sure. Everybody expects Azorius control out of you for some reason. I think you've just been unfairly tagged with that. But yeah, mono white mid-range. I have been playing around with a couple different shells, but Esper Legends, is that going to make a comeback? There's certainly enough legends in that color set that you know, you could make an argument. A lot of them are black. You've got the 2-drop Vadmir New Blood Vampire Rogue that when you commit a crime, it gets a 1/1. When it has 4 1/1 counters on it, it has Menace and Lifelink, so it gives you that added oomph, especially with Rafine giving you the 1/1 counters. Tiny Bones, the Pickpocket, and Tiny Bones Joins Up are also seeing some play in that slot. The Pickpocket is weird. Like I got ambushed by that card and I didn't have the removal, and if it sits there after a while it can really cause you some trouble and it can really steal the opponent's creatures. And aggro meta, I wonder if you know, that card just has a little bit more value value than it should. Shoot the Sheriff, of course, getting splits with Go for the Throat. I'm doing a 2/3 in the Esper Legends deck. The other reason for committing crimes is Karavek the Punisher in the 3-drop slot. I've got 2 of that one. That's a Warlock that when you commit a crime, exile 1 target black card from your graveyard and copy it. And then you can cast it, lose 2 life if you do. So that's not just removal. I mean, you can do other things as well. If you're playing Bat, I'm sure that's going to frustrate the opponent. So I don't know. I'm trying to find ways to commit crimes other than just direct targeted removal or bounce spells. So like I've got Kaido Dancing Shadow, which is not new, but the +1 allows you to target a creature. So I'm going to see how well that works within that shell. And then all those things, I think, add up to like a really nice curve. And I think that's what Esper Legends has always been about, has always wanted, has been characterized by. So, you know, I'm tinkering with it. I'm trying to see what the balance of white to black creatures, because of course we've got, you know, stuff still in there, Thalia. We've got a lot of stuff that you could really stuff into this deck. A lot of like white legendaries, a lot of blue legendaries. And then some non-legendaries as well, like Steam Core Scholars still in the... So there's a lot of things to play with in Esper, and the argument has always been, is Esper Legends viable in light of the fact that you could just go Esper mid-range, right? So that's one of the big questions I think that shell has to answer, and we'll see week 1, week 2 if, you know, I'm going to be testing and playing with that one on Friday night. What else are you cooking?
So I keep seeing different prowess decks, and yeah. I keep seeing Is It prowess, and I just think this is the worst version of this deck. I watched this deck and it does absolutely nothing. It puts no pressure on the board. You're like worried about grinding with Ledger Shredder and Profts, and it just feels very fragile. Yeah, and like the Otter, it just feels very fragile. Darkstream and I have been tinkering with Boros. Oh. And my God, that deck is explosive. You can turn 3 kill people consistently. And it really embodies everything I've said about Slickshot and why I actually starting to hate the card, because it's your opponent cannot tap out for the entirety of the game that Slickshot is plotted, or they will die from full health.
Okay. I was slotting that into Gruul, and I've been seeing that shell, that version. I did not think Boros when I saw the card, obviously because Convoke is a thing, but do you think it outguns Convoke? Like it has, or is it a similar timeline in terms of when it's trying to win?
So the way I was talking about it with Rictus is Convoke wins consistently on turn 4. Heroic wins sometimes on turn 3, more consistently 4 and 5. So it's really just like your hand. I think the benefit that Heroic has over Convoke is that it forces your opponent to play a completely different game of Magic. You're no longer playing Magic, you're playing Stop the Slickshot.
Oh, yeah.
And it actually feels like a Pioneer power level more than a standard power level. We've tried a bunch of different decks against it, and you need 2 or 3 removal spells on, like, if they like save us like two Slickshots plotted, you're probably dead in almost no matter what you do.
Jesus.
It can feel really unfair to play against. Yeah.
All right. By the time this releases, I wonder if we're going to be seeing it on ladder. We're going to be seeing it this weekend in events. I don't know. That's one that I've already heard Rictus say Tier 0. We don't know. We don't know. It's too early to tell, too early to say, but that is exciting. That's very exciting. What got me excited about the Gruul version of the deck is it's just it does the Picnic Ruiner thing even better. Even better than it did before. And just the ability to slot in red cards that refill your hand, that get, you know, draw you more cards now. That availability is what sort of elevates that shell just a little bit. I don't know if it's as consistent as a Boros shell would be. That's my thing. But I am seeing a lot of the Gruul prowess out there right now. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the big reason to go Gruul, I feel like, is Gruul has option of more protection spells. White really just has like the 4 Lorenz escapes,
Yeah.
but so we're like using Skrelv to supplement it. But green,
Oh,
you have
okay.
like 3 different protection spells you can run in green.
Yeah, they reprinted Snakeskin
The
Veil, I think. So
mhm,
there's that now
yeah,
too.
the white version, their version of Picnic Ruiner is more explosive because it's Illuminator Virtuoso.
Oh yeah.
Because that card's still in standard for one more set.
Oh God, that's
And
right. Oh
yeah, and
shit.
it's disgusting. it's disgusting. Like it's so hard to play against if you don't have multiple removal spells all in a row.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough. Holy crap. That totally wipes away some of the decks I was gonna talk about because it's a lot faster than some of the brews I wanted to cook up. Like I was talking about Terror of the Peaks before release, and I was like, man, what shell can we slot this card into? And initial thoughts were Jund Fling. Let's try to get that ability to like happen multiple times a turn so we can kill him like in 2 turns with it if possible, one. And I have been seeing some rather nasty shells of it, mid-range style shells around Izzet. I've seen some around mono red dragons because there are now enough dragons in red just to run that by itself.
You've been seeing way different things than I've been seeing.
Yeah, and then that damn Jeskai Dragons deck that was alive like 4 sets ago.
With like Zergo and Ojutai?
Yeah. People trying to figure out ways to drop Terror of the Peaks into
ladder.
that.
I want your ladder. My ladder sucks. My ladder is Dimir, Esper, and Slickshot decks, and like the occasional Golgari player.
Yeah. I kind of feel bad for Golgari players right now because I think that mid-range deck is getting sandwiched between the options on the top end that control players have, and then all the quick aggro. Quick aggro is back. Do you think, that being said, let's talk about this before we talk about the interview. Do you think Rest in Peace, and let's bring this into the conversation too, Pest Control, do you think those 2 cards are going to be or have been as dominant in shutting down aggro and Temur as we thought?
So the Pest Control side, I've said to Rick this, I actually don't feel like that card is nearly as good as people think it is. It only hits Convoke favorably. A lot of toxic stuff is 2 mana. Even a lot of Convoke stuff is 2 mana, and relying on that for your board wipe, sure, like in Esper, it'll save your bats and stuff, but relying on it for your board wipe might not be enough. I still think Temporary Lockdown is the best card against that deck.
That makes a lot of sense.
Better than Pest Control. Yeah.
I think people want to have.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think people want to have their cake and eat it too, just like you said. Wanting to preserve the 2-drop slot for a lot of the like mid-range style creature decks that want that. Esper included in that. So yeah.
Yeah. But as for Rest in Peace with Temur Ramp, if you're playing Temur Ramp and you see Rest in Peace, I hope you have Frillbacks, because that card slows you down so much. I've been playing mono white. I haven't lost to Temur yet.
Oh.
Because I just have every single time I'll lose game 1 and win games 2 and 3 because of 3 Rest in Peace, 2 Elesh Norn.
Is Frillback
the only? It's so hard to fight through.
Is Frillback the only tool that they have that they're using, or are you seeing like Terra Sunders?
Well, they're not in black, right? So like Terra Sunder's a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
Because they can't use the second part of it. I feel like, so the ones I've been seeing are Pick Your Poison, which is probably good against most decks, but I have like 3 wedding announcements, 2 ossifications on the board. I don't care about the Pick Your Poison, but Frillback is the other one I'm seeing. Frillback's probably the best option because you're actually actively ramping and you can bring it in versus mono, stuff like that. So, and you can bring it in versus the mirror.
Yeah.
But as for how Rest in Peace does against Temur, it slows them down so much. It's actually it's actually so ridiculous, like how much time you buy yourself by Rest in Peacing them on turn 2.
I have been losing a lot, but that's because I'm trying to poke. I'm trying to. Week 1, I lose the most because I'm always using that week to just like poke things and just like see like in Jurassic Park, like the raptors poking the fence. Like I'm trying to find the hole in the
Oh
fence.
goodness.
And it's yeah, been
I
tough.
usually honestly after a set release is usually when I hit Mythic the fastest.
Mhm.
I just kind of like pick one deck and stick with it, and most people aren't ready to play against it, so it's like got the consistency part of it. As long as you have a good sideboard plan, generally you just like blow through games.
I should do that. I should just pick one deck. I have a problem with that. I build too many. Oh man, but I always a good time talking about this stuff. If you want more info on OTJ, Stay the Meta is coming back next week. Sideboard guides are coming back next week. Athena, I know you're going to do one.
Yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait to see it. All right, I would like to turn our attention now to our feature interview. I recently got to sit down with AceMTG, ask him a few questions about content, cards, collaboration. He's really such a high energy person in the interview, and just if you get to talk to him at all, and it's exciting to see him be excited about Magic is really why he's somebody that I recommend watching. I'll let him speak for himself now though, and I'll go ahead. Here's that interview. All right, welcome everybody. I am sitting down with AceMTG. We're gonna chat a little bit about his content. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Obviously, big fan of yours. I have told you before, so your State of the Meta is my absolute favorite thing I watch usually on YouTube. So it's a privilege to even be on here. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. I want to get started right away. I want to talk about you. Give us what I like to call the content creator story. How did you get started making content?
So it's very interesting you ask me right now, the day after we had early access, because literally early access, by the way, that I was not invited to this time.
Same here.
Literally, that was the major reason. I got so tired of watching all these people say, why did they get the cards early? I want to do that. And then it just kind of fit this interesting little niche of time. Like I always play Arena. I play Arena every single day, regardless if I was going to be streaming or not. A girlfriend kind of mentioned, she was like, well, you're already there playing. Why don't you do it? Like, you're already talking normally when you play. And my biggest thing, like my motivating factor though, was like, I want to be part of that streamer event. And I was like, yeah, it would be kind of nice though, to also get that local game feel back. I had really started missing that from when I first started playing Magic. And obviously most of us, when we play Magic, that was the only way we did it forever, is having somebody to chat with and things like that. So it gave me that little bit of community feel again. And so I want to be part of early access. I want to get those cards.
Yeah, I sort of get that feeling from the content that you make. Thank you. I was able to be a part of your streamer Kumite, and I had the same kind of feeling. You were there to showcase deck ideas. You were there to showcase creators. It was a really good community feeling, and I would say it coincides with a lot of why I make content as well, which is to bring back the tabletop feeling to digital. Yeah.
I went back to my local game store and I played in person for the first time since 2005. And so like doing that content and talking to other people made me want to go in and play. And I forgot how long of a night those are. Yeah. Like every round is an hour. So like, I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, what do you mean? This didn't take 10 minutes. I'm like,
yeah. There's a pretty stark contrast between digital and events. I'm about to go to SCG Con Atlanta tomorrow, and I'm going to be playing in a pre-release, and I have to space myself out. There's so much I want to do, but it's like, I got to remember these events sometimes take like 3, 4, 5 hours. So you talked about your early Magic experiences. You played 2005 in store. What really got you playing Magic?
So my initial one, I want to say this is going to be 1994 or 1995, right? Young kid. It came out in 93. I was not a rich kid. I did not have money to be doing this game, but I had a very, very wealthy friend, and he had like just a ton of cards. And at the time, I believe it was called Leviathan, the 10/10 blue creature, 7/8 mana, something like that. And he would play with that. I thought, oh, this is so cool. And like casting spells. And so like my first introduction was I played with him a few times, only with his decks, only with kind of what he would give me. And so that was my initial brewing. He was taking all the rares. He was taking all the best things. things. I got the kind of leftovers. And then when I finally went off to college and I was like, had a little bit of money, I saw a local like game store nearby, went in, and I played fairly competitively for about 3 years. I wish I could remember the name. I know I could Google it and find it somewhere, but it was a big, with all the pros, was in San Diego.
Oh, very cool.
I mean, so I qualified for that. I went 11-1 and what, yeah. And so did not do my best in that one in San Diego. And so that was San Diego. I want to say it was 2004, 2005. Okay. And then kind of started my real job, started teaching, and then was like, didn't really get into it. And literally Arena, it was on Facebook. I saw this, I was like, oh, Magic, what? Online, digital, free. And it was in beta. So it was, I think that's 2018.
Yeah.
I think it was 2018, October. I know beta, I think started a little bit before that, but they didn't leave beta. So I started October 2018 on Arena and have not looked back.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, we're all advocates of Arena over here on this side. So we're content creators. We are inspired by other content creators. I know that my start was because I wanted to do better than the people I was watching. I wanted to actually compete with them personally. So are there any content creators that you watch personally, and what motivates you to keep an eye on those content creators?
Yeah. So honestly, my biggest one to get into it was actually Dr. Ruckus, which doesn't really make it. And the reason for that is not that he was like a first or so much different, but I could relate to him. He got up, he only had an hour a day to play. And that was it. What videos he recorded is what you got, right? I don't have the luxury of, like the CGBs, like the bigger names were. They talk about it. At least they're transparent. They're like, I filmed for 3 hours and I took, the games I thought you would find most exciting. And so, but Dr. Ruckus was like, I have an hour before work. These are the games you get. I create a deck and, I play it. And so I was like, okay, wait a minute. If he could do that, I could too, right? I could keep my full-time job, have a life, do all these other things. And before him, though, I think Jim Davis was one of my first big ones. I loved the Bronze to Mythic. I always loved to draft back when I would play in paper. I always felt like that was the best way to get a collection. Like, I didn't really spend money on Magic cards back in the day. It was like, let's win these things and then trade for others. And that's the same way I've been on Arena. I haven't spent a penny, and I do it all through standard events. I do it all through drafting. It's become much harder because now I have to spend all those wild cards now that I'm doing content creation. Right. Week one, you have to have them all. So what I normally do, I still try and cheat the system. I kind of figure out, like, these are going to be my first 7 decks. Okay, craft those cards. And in that time, I draft a bunch, hoping to get as much of the collection so I could still keep my wild cards.
Dr. Ruckus, very cool. Jim Davis, very cool. Obviously, the Bronze to Mythic series, very inspirational. I find that was awesome to see. So, it's no secret. We love Standard. Standard's been revitalized in paper quite a bit recently, and I think it's safe to say on my end, I believe the design mechanic has changed. Like, what are your feelings? What are your feelings on the Standard format, especially since I see you make a lot of content in it?
Yeah, so I mean, Standard, just to let you know, it's the only format I've ever played. So I mean, I've dabbled, I've done a couple games historic or things like that on Arena, but like when I would play in paper, yes, I would draft, but Standard was it. I never played any Pioneer or anything Explorer. I never did any of those other types of formats. Same thing on Arena. I mean, I've like done the occasional here or there game, but I've always loved Standard. And then Best of One is kind of what I've leaned into on Arena. Like on my own time, I'll do the best of 3 because I want to see really what are the competitive decks. There still is that kind of little bug in me where it's like, best of 3 is the true format to really see what the best decks are out there. Can you build a sideboard to go against all competition? But when it comes to like filming things, I did a few test runs of it and I was like, okay, I did 1 video. That's it. You got to see me play 1 opponent because in my best of 3 went 3 games and the thing was an hour long. And so for me, I enjoy the content creation part of the best of 1. I love to see how a deck is tested against many, many different ones. So I'm more the best of 1. And I will say, I believe Standard best of 1 on Arena, I don't think there's been a better Standard best of 1 since Arena has been on. And I've played since, like I said, the beginning of beta. And I mean, one thing you just go look at is go check out Untapped, go look at the meta, and it'll talk, and it changes different days. But the last time I looked a couple days ago, there was 10 decks at tier 1, and how they justify tier 1 is above 55% win rate. And the highest was at a 57.3% win rate.
Whoa.
Then we have another. Yeah. And then, so we're talking 55 to 57. We're talking out of 100 games, a difference of winning 2 games.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's 10 decks there. Then you want to drop to tier 2. There's another 20 decks there. That's 50% to 55% win rate. So now we're talking 30 decks, somewhere between a 7% variance. That is it out of 100 games. And that's what I absolutely love. And there's no just one deck that just steamrolls them all. Like, no matter what deck you have, you just know you go on and you have a chance against anybody. And I think that is such a cool thing, especially for new players, especially for people who love to brew things. You can take your janky, wild whatever and hop in there, and you're still going to get some wins, which also, I feel like as a content creator, it puts a little bit of onus on all of us. So we have to be honest. So I hate it when somebody only shows wins, never shows losses or things like that, or never at least talks about it at the end. Like, these are your good matchups. These are your bad. Instead of everybody just trying to get every single click, hey, this is tier 0 meta breaker. No, there is no meta breaker out there. And now when we switch to best of 3, obviously, right, we have a shorter range, right? Sideboard changes everything. Sometimes, standard gets solved a little bit, and it's oh, okay, I'm gonna play, and these are the same 4 decks I'm gonna play over and over and over again. And yet every time I go, it's so many different random weird brews. And that's actually one sad thing to me also about the streamer event is not getting to see these random crazy things playing that day. That's what, so I got to Mythic quickly this month only because when we get our new cards, I like to be in Mythic because you usually will get to see a little bit more variance. People are a little bit more willing to test things out. Where if you're hopping into Platinum Diamond, well, then guess what? I guarantee you're going to see some Mono Red. You're going to see some Boros Convoke. I mean, I'll see that in Mythic as well, but I want to see a little bit more variance. I want to see these new cards and be able to test them out. So, but Standard, it's just, to me, it's fabulous. I cannot think of a better game.
I totally agree with you. I think Standard's in a very healthy place right now, and I think it's going to get even more exciting. And you raise a really good point. My roots were in best of 1 content. I loved making best of 1 content for the reasons you listed, and I think I personally shifted to best of 3 just to try to become a better player, and do content at the same time. But yes, best of 1 is just more content creator friendly. You really get to show off more games, more combos, a lot more packed into less time. And so I can see why, from an audience standpoint, that's attractive content to go watch. It's thrilling content. So,
well, also, I just want to say, I have huge respect for all best 3 content creators because I take sideboard very seriously. And that is such a skill set. It's not just throw 15 cards together. For me, sideboards was hours of thought because you have to be addressing what's out there in the meta and what you're seeing. And there's just so many just variables that go into it. And it's so hard to really do a true sideboard. And so, that's why everybody who does those best of 3s, sometimes I will admit some content creators, their sideboards are a little throwaway. They're not idealized, and I get it, and I don't blame them in any way because you cannot make 30 great sideboards for a month. It's not going to happen. So
and things shift every 4 days now. It used to be bi-weekly and then weekly, but the meta shifts every few days now. So it's intense to keep up with. But I want to shift real quick to Outlaws of Thunder Junction. It's coming out. I'm excited. I know you're excited. What are you going to be using to brew with when it releases?
So first thing I did, I made a top 10 video of it, and just to let you know, I listed Slick Shot Show Off as my number 1 card. Marchesa, Dealer of Death, the Grixis. I think she means some business. We have a 3/4 commit a crime, which is so easy in Grixis. You get that extra card value, so you pay 1, and then you get to look at the top 2, keep 1 card. So I think that's just going to be a huge value engine. We still have Corpse Appraiser in the format, so we're talking 2 great 3-drops that are just finding you those threats that you need. Isa the Hellraiser. That is another one. So I'll admit, I took a little peek at the early access, even though I was a little bitter. And I just saw that card. originally I didn't think it was going to perform as well as it did, but this whole set to me is looking like some grindy, like mid-range decks are going to be able to have a little bit of push. I don't see, and I would love to hear your opinion on it, but besides the Slick Shot, what great aggro cards did they get? Boros Convoke got its fast land. It got no other additions, but it got a whole lot. It got a whole lot of hate. Mono red, Slick Shot maybe, but that's it. But I don't think that necessarily makes mono red much better. I mean, obviously with rotation over the summer, it'll probably need it when it loses Kamano and things like that. But I just see a value train of cards. So for me, what I'm hyped to build around is a lot of Rakdos, Grixis mid-range style decks. That's really what I see coming out of the set. I think it's really powerful.
And I think viewers are going to love watching those decks in action, because those are some exciting color sets generally. But to comment on what you said, I think you and Athena agree. Y'all both showcase Slick Shot in the last Rebelcast. That's the card that she chose. I chose Goldvein Hydra. I'm kind of a mono green lover myself, but yes, I think Boros Convoke got no pieces. The pieces it did get are asking it to go up the curve to 4. Which it's not comfortable doing, in my opinion. And the problem is it might be forced to, because you have pest control, which is going to see a lot of play, a lot of sideboard usage, and it's gonna try to drown out Bant Toxic, Convoke, and a little bit of side hate will be coming Red's way because of that. So I don't know.
Boros Convoke in best of 3 is in big trouble. Like, I mean, it might be able to live still a little bit in best of 1, but best of 3, like you're saying, like that pest control, that's destroying, like that's going in so many sideboards. So
that's about all the time we have. Thank you so much for coming on. I want to give you a chance to promote yourself and your content. Where can folks catch you next?
So I'm on YouTube. I usually do videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I used to be 5 days a week, but things got a little too hectic. So I've moved it down a little bit, but I'm all best of 1 content with the occasional top 10 list here. Or as an example, on Monday, I would love it if any of you checked out. I'm going to have Max Damage on there. I'm going to have MTG Brew Lab. I'm going to have Mythic Mike. I'm going to have Mana Man. I'm going to have Mithras. I want to talk to some other content creators and ask them, what are they also hyped to build around in this next set? I'm just like you. I want other people to find other content creators, right? You all know your CGBs. You probably know your Jim Davises or your Ash Lizzles, but there's a lot of other people putting out some fantastic content. So if they come to my channel and they see one of you talking about a deck that you want to build, they might want to go check it out. So that's going to be my video on Monday. I'm going to wait to do any new standard content until next week on Wednesday after we've all got the cards, because talking to other content creators, nobody cares too much about our stuff right now because everybody's watching all that early access. So I figured, you know what? I'm just going to wait for those new cards as well. But check me out on YouTube Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I'd love to hear from all of you.
Hell yeah, I'll be excited to be on there, and I love what you're doing promoting other content creators. Before we go, I just want to say one thing that CGB sort of left me with years ago, something that sticks out in my mind that he said about content creation that I've just kind of lived by ever since, is we all share an audience. That we have to realize that, unlike other games, other forms of content creation, we don't really have to compete. We can actually help each other out and all mutually benefit. And so I love AceMTG. I love 100%. Your content for you promoting that ideal. So you and me both. I think we see eye to eye on that. But thank you so much for coming on. Everybody go check out AceMTG. Wonderful best of 1 content, and friend of the channel, ally of the Rebellion. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Man, I was happy to showcase friend of the Rebellion, AceMTG, someone that makes content that I've even watched in the past. I love his whole shtick, his whole gimmick of being the like karate champion of Magic the Gathering best of 1. That's his thing, and it's fun to watch. But what did you think? Have you ever watched his content or ran into him ever?
So I watched his content a little bit. I'm just not much of a best of 1 person anymore. Right. If I had found his content like 2 years ago, like when I came back to the game initially, I probably would have. But yeah, I don't know. I watched a bunch of the Kumites honestly, those are like the more interesting ones because they kind of make you think about like deck ideas. Yeah, super high energy guy. Just hearing that guy talk honestly puts a smile on your face. Like it's kind of crazy. I never really thought about the best of one content creation the way that he was talking about, because I'd always kind of looked at it and said like, oh, well, this isn't competitive, this isn't something I want to do. But I can understand it for someone that like wants to go on their lunch break, watch an hour of Magic and not see a single best of 3 in that time.
Yeah, and I can't lie, the trajectory of my own career was, you know, only best of 1 for like the first year and a half, just trying to dominate in that, no pun intended, arena. I wanted to beat CGB. I wanted to, and he talks about it too, just like seeing those people get that sort of traction from playing best of 1 and then wanting to be in that spotlight yourself to highlight just how well you can build and brew in such a quick fashion, which good segue to say that I'm going to be interviewing MTG Brew Lab, who's another best of 1 ally of the Rebellion. They watch our content, and just like AceMTG, I think they have a deep respect for best of 3. I think the conversation between best of 1 and best of 3 communities and creators is, and I'm trying to be a part of that, is has changed in the past year to one where we're no longer like I used to have a really negative attitude about best of 1 when I first started best of 3, because I was, you know, just like you, I want to be competitive and I want to win events and tournaments and I want to, you know, showcase that in other competitors. So it's, you know, it's always been a weird balance between the two. Arena is unique in that it has best of 1. I've seen Jim Davis poke CGB about it in the past and have been like, you know, go back to best of 1, or that's not real Magic.
Yeah.
You know, the worst of things have been said between, but I think at the end of the day, we share a lot of the same ideals. Like he said, he's a lot like me in the way that he gets excited about other people getting excited about Brews and all that. So he's actually pretty unique in that he tries to translate some of the best of 1 stuff to best of 3 for himself off camera. So I think that's part of what started that conversation between us. But in any event, tune in next time. We'll interview MTG Brew Lab. I'll ask him about his process, try to pick his brain on how he brews, because he comes up with some crazy concepts that I've translated into best of 3 for myself. You really won't want to miss it. But that's all that we have time for today.
This episode of the Rebelcast is sponsor free, so if you'd like to contribute to what we do and make sure we stay in the game as long as possible, consider making a purchase in our merch store or joining the Rebellion.
Thank you to the community for supporting our various shows and content. Don't forget to check out the return of the sideboard guides. I can't wait. And stay the meta next week. We got to let the meta cool for 1 week, see how it cooks up, how it brews up, and then we'll be back to analyze it. But until then, untap, upkeep,
resist.